Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure today to introduce Melissa Joseph, an artist who makes pictures using felted wool. And these pictures are often embedded in objects that are sometimes sculptural and that usually serve as frames, both in the sense that they surround the felted wool image, and also in the way that they provide context or add a layer of meaning, or a kind of layer is the wrong word spatially, isn't it? Add meaning somehow, another element of meaning. Work often deals with her family's diasporic history and also her own experience as a second generation American. Lots of issues come up through those histories and experiences. Her work has been the feature of solo shows at Margot Samuel Gallery, also group shows with Margot Samuel, both at her gallery here in New York and also in art fairs like Lista Basel. Artpace San Antonio in Texas, Art Production Fund here in New York. Does Art Production Fund have their own space now?
Well, they just do a thing at Rockefeller Center.
Oh, that's right. Right, okay. Yeah, so Art Production Fund at Rockefeller Center, List Gallery at Swarthmore College near Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Regular Normal, both in their space and at art fairs, right? And she's been in group shows at ICA San Francisco, the Brooklyn Museum, Rebecca Camacho Presents in San Francisco, Anthony Gallery in Chicago, Charles Moffat Gallery here in New York City. Also in New York, group shows at Venus over Manhattan and James Fuentes Gallery, Jeffrey Deitch in Los Angeles. Utak MOCA.
Oh, Utah.
Sorry, Utah. You know what? That was my typo. The good thing is I actually write these myself. But bad news is I sometimes mistype. Hannah Traoré Gallery, which also showed the artist who spoke last week, Rachel Martin, in a solo show. Yeah, so we're having a Hannah Traoré moment. Swivel Gallery in Brooklyn. Southern Exposure, one of the long-standing, amazing nonprofit art spaces in San Francisco, and other places. Her work has been reviewed, featured, or discussed in Hyperallergic, Art Forum, Artnet, Artnews, New American Paintings, Le Monde, which is the kind of New York Times of France, maybe you could say, CNN, Architectural Digest, AD India, and Whitewall, among others. And she's done residencies at Artpace, San Antonio, Dieu Donné, their workspace residency, the Textile Arts Center, BRIC in Brooklyn, Fountainhead, the Archie Bray Foundation for Ceramic Arts, the Museum of Arts and Design, and will soon be a resident at Greenwich House Pottery, which is great. And she's a regular contributor to Bomb magazine. Degrees, Masters of Fine Arts from PAFA, the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts. Also got an MA in teaching from RISD and an Associates of Applied Sciences at FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology of the City University of New York. And last but not least, a BA at NYU, New York University, just downtown from here. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Melissa Joseph.
Hi, everybody. Hi, thank you for having me. As Mark kindly introduced me, I'm Melissa Joseph. I really love doing these talks because I wasn't in graduate school so long ago. I got my MFA in 2018. So I was, I was 38 when I got my MFA. So not, not young, not old, definitely in the middle. But I need to kind of take a moment today, I think, before I just get into things and act like everything's normal, to kind of just acknowledge that everything is not normal right now. And it's odd. It's an odd time. I'm sure a lot of you are also feeling that way, and I just want to, I don't know, acknowledge it. I don't have a solution. I'm still kind of going through the world in a weird fugue state, trying to understand, do I keep pretending everything's normal? Do I wait and see how bad things get? What's going to happen? Are we, I don't know. So I just kind of want to take a little time to just acknowledge to you all that even though I'm going to go ahead and do this talk, and I do want to continue and have the Q&A and talk about how you can think about the future and be hopeful and excited, because that's what we have to do. And that's all we can do. I also want to acknowledge that the world is going to be always fluctuating in weird ways that we can't control, and our practices exist in and around and through that. So yeah, I'll be talking about the last few years and working through the pandemic and working through a lot of political shifting. And yeah, it's not going to be the whole talk, but I am concerned for my friends that are immigrants. I am concerned for my trans friends. I am concerned for anyone that's a woman in this country. And those things are existing and infiltrating all of the work that we're doing in the way that the lens that we're using to view work when we go out. So feel free, in the Q&A part of this conversation to ask questions relating to this, but also I don't know exactly where things are headed. None of us really do. It's a weird time. So that said, I will launch into this talk, but I think it would have been really, I don't know, inauthentic to kind of just pretend that it wasn't happening. So, yeah. So, being an artist, that's what we get to do. We are really actively engaging with what's going on around us, whether we make overtly political work or not. It's political. And my work is the same. I think I moved away from trying to make overtly political work and trying to just understand the way that my work was inherently political. And that was thanks to somebody who came into my studio and just gave me kind of this comment that your studio practice doesn't have to be everything. You can be an activist, you can do this and you can do that. And it all doesn't have to be part of the studio practice. And I think that's important to remember. We can be multiple selves and work in different ways. So then I like to point out, another thing about the way that I do artist talks is that I'm not just going to talk about me the whole time. I'm going to kind of just talk about things that I think I wish I had gotten in artist talks when I was in graduate school, because it is really cool to learn about artists and we can do that. And I'm going to share a lot of images and stories, but there's also things that I wish I had learned that it's hard to learn. You kind of have to go out there and find out on your own stuff about this world. There's no guidebook and everybody's path is so different. If you're in medical school, everybody in your class is going to kind of have the same path. They might go to a different residency or they might go to a different university or city, but they're kind of following the same trajectory. Art isn't like that. You all are going to do something different. You're all going to have a different way that you enter in and activate spaces. And so I just wanted to say, I didn't start working with art full time until I was 40 years old. I did a lot of other things first. And I think, that's great. Like, it's really great. That's why we all make different work. That's why we all, there's room for all of our voices. And so kind of embrace the path, don't try to rush it. Don't try to mimic anybody else's path. And it is hard not to sometimes see somebody else next to you having opportunities and you don't have them yet, or like, that's real and that's normal, but just know that it's about the long game. And Isabel and I were just talking about this, if you keep going, it will happen. Like, it's just, everybody's time is not always at the same time. So I, followed a pretty circuitous path. I was pre-med for a little while. I have an Indian dad. It's kind of a thing. I don't know if any of you guys can understand, maybe. And it wasn't for me. It was really squeamish. So I started doing something else. I transferred to NYU and I studied art, but not fine arts directly. I did individualized study. So you could kind of make up your own major. Long story short, I just did different things. I tried to find my way. I kept finding things that felt close, like a shoe that was on the wrong foot. It was like just something a little bit off. And then finally, in 2015, my dad passed away, and it gave me a moment to reflect on things that I maybe hadn't done yet that I wanted to do. And that's when I decided to go to graduate school. So from that point on, I was like, I found my path and it felt very authentic. This is what I want to do. But I was already, half of my life was already over. So then I was like, well, I don't have that much time. I better get moving. And so I have really dug in, and you'll see that. It's pretty, between 2018 and now, I've done almost everything I can. There's a lot of saying yes. That's another thing about this life. You have to say yes in the beginning. There's some barriers to entry, so you just, you say yes to a lot of things in the beginning. And then at some point, people will start letting you know that you have to start saying no to things. And it's hard to do that after you've been in this sort of survival mode where you just say yes to anything to kind of get your resume built and move through the space. So, yeah, I also think it's important to share work I was doing along the way, so you can kind of get an idea of, like, we are evolving and changing all the time, but the through lines of ideas or materials or things that we're interested in are, if you look back, are usually there. You can kind of see them. So these are some works I was making towards the end of my graduate program. One of them was in my, I think in my thesis show. And there are images like from my photo archive, which I still use when I make them in felt, but these ones are printed on silk. And then the silk's kind of folded based on sari draping techniques that I was interested in at the time. And then I'm pairing them with these found objects. I come from a small town in Pennsylvania that was like an industrial town. It was a steel town. And so I grew up with, rusted metal stuff around, the woods, deer, hunting, no internet. It was a very different world. And so my material memory and the things that I tend to kind of be excited by or drawn to materially are natural and industrial things, like these two objects. One is a foundry tool, and one is the bottom of an old hospital, IV holder. So this is just to show you that even though my work looks nothing like this anymore, the same elements I'm using the same elements. They've just kind of evolved and found another way to be expressed. This is another work around that time. So using the images from my family photo archive, I'm biracial. My dad came from India in the 70s. My mom is American. She's from Pittsburgh, Irish descent. So I had this very culturally mixed way of growing up in Pennsylvania. So those images are important. We didn't have, like I mentioned, we didn't have the internet. So the only way we could connect with the family that was back in India was with photographs. And it was with long distance phone calls where, my dad would scream really loud into the phone in a language that we didn't speak. It's called Malayalam. And then hang up fast so that the call didn't get too expensive. And so it's very different now. We have FaceTime. I can FaceTime with my aunts and my cousins and everything. It's a very, very different time. But those photos held a lot of weight because of that. They were the only sort of access point that I had to those people. And I was learning, I went to Catholic school. I'm not religious, but my family was. And so they sent us to Catholic school. So I'm learning Bible stories and I'm learning fairy tales and I'm learning about these people in India that are my relatives, but I'm not, they're all kind of cycling into form mythologies for me in my youth that I still kind of have now. this is one more, but I think I'm just showing you these just so that you can see that the imagery that I've been using is the same. The idea of mixing materials and pushing form is the same. But eventually during COVID, I discovered felting. And that kind of changed everything for me. It was almost like I discovered, like I landed on a planet and everyone was speaking a language I could understand. And I can't, there's no scientific explanation for why felting was like my thing. It just is. So I hope that all of you find something that you love as much as I love felting. I made this joke before, but I do think it's true. Like I might have been a sheep in a past life, or I might have been like a sheep adjacent. And I think like there is something about wool that I understand. And I can't do it, the things I can do with wool with paint, even though I've painted for 20 years or 30 years. I can't do it with collage. I can't do it with sculpture. I can't even do it with ceramics or paper, even though I love working with those materials. There's just like some sort of connection to this material. So I urge you to keep looking until you find something that really, really you feel like lets you express yourself in a really, authentic way. And I use that word authentic a lot. I don't have a hard definition of what that is. I think just you all know when you find it. You know when you make something and it feels right. You know when you look at it, if it's done, you know if it has the thing or if it doesn't have the thing. I know that even now. I put things out in the world, like in shows and stuff. If there's deadlines, sometimes I have to put things out that I wish I could keep longer because they don't have the thing, like they're not buzzing yet. And also some things never get it, right? Everything we make can't be a masterpiece, but everything we make can get us closer to the next one, right? And I think that's important too. So they're important as part of the journey, as a learning tool, especially with felting, because I don't know a lot of people who are felting in the way that I'm felting. I am self-taught with this. I learned during COVID. I watched some YouTube videos about wet felting. And then needle felting, I just sort of did on my own. Someone gave me the needles and the wool and said, I think you should try this. You might like it. And I did. And I think, it lets you be sculptural and painterly. There's something about textiles that are really accessible. We all use textiles, wear textiles, live with them in our everyday life. I think I come from that small town where we didn't have art museums or like high art experiences. My mom was a picture lady, which meant that she came into the school, into the classrooms with posters from artists like Salvador Dali and Mary Cassatt, and would just sort of give a half an hour lecture about them, showing us posters. So that was my access. But what I did have access to were masterful quilters, masterful needlepoint art, crafters or cross stitchers. My mom was a cross stitcher. So that I could see and that I could access. And all of these things, those are what inform how I see the world and what I can relate to. So what felt actually gave me was a way to go back to my training as a textile designer or my childhood making things in the basement with craft materials. It gave me a way to bring that into the conversation I was trying to have in a contemporary art dialogue. Because that's the thing, right? We're making art because we want to communicate with people. We don't necessarily just want to make it. It's finding the balance. We want to make it just to make it. You don't want to make it like, you don't want to be motivated too much by the outside, but we do want it to be shared. We do want people to be able to interact with it. So it's important to be able to figure out how to do that. And it's a lifetime journey. It takes forever. So during COVID, I tried to felt into pretty much any material I could find. This is a bark paper from Mexico. The first one on the left, that one is wet felt. So I made wet felt, which we can talk about later. You guys can also highly recommend, there are felting kits you can get online if you guys want to try it, but you can also just watch YouTube videos about it just to see what it is. It's not a process that's people are very familiar with. It's not weaving, it's not knitting, it's not rug hooking, it's not needle punch. So it's you use a felting like a barbed needle and you sort of stab, it's stabbing kind of. They make these t-shirts that say needle felting is cheaper than therapy and needle felting because we can't stab people. So I think like people are starting to kind of catch on to the like cathartic properties of needle felting. But yeah, it was an exploratory time. So from 2020, when I started needle felting in March until now, it's consumed pretty much my entire life. And in that time, I have explored different ways to use it. So this was the first show that I had in New York at a gallery called Regular Normal that's run by Danny Baez. He's the head of art at Kickstarter, and he doesn't have a physical gallery anymore. So, you know, it was really exciting to be able to have this show and have this exposure. And then he took me to an art fair too. So I got to do my first ever art fair. And as that was all happening, I was continuing to work in other materials. So I landed on this sort of industrial felt. That's my favorite thing to use as a substrate. And I also I'm continuing to try to figure out how to build a painting language with this material. So how can I create reflection? How can I create transparency? Every single piece, it can inform the next one about how to do something, how to do patterns, how 3D can it actually get? Can it be actually like bas relief or impasto? You can kind of, you know, I can challenge and try to figure out every single piece. I try to figure something else out about the medium. So yeah, so I'm just kind of showing you now some pieces. I feel like I brought the vibe down with my initial comments. I'm sorry. I usually am a much more animated speaker. So I just want you guys to know, I'll come back. I'm gonna pick it back up. Okay. I don't know. I usually like, yeah. It's not that's not the way, that's not the world we're in right now. Yeah, sorry. This is where I am. Okay, so then one thing that I like to share is my South Asian heritage. I feel like I didn't get to see a lot of imagery with this kind of imagery when I was growing up in institutional spaces. I still don't. Those images are important. I keep bringing them back as much as I can. But also I think it's important to show mixed families because that's another thing I didn't see. And all of our families are really, really, really blended and mixed. I think, you know, if we take a look at them, and it's just, for some reason, the media representation hasn't caught on yet. So like, there are some occasional like commercials where they'll try to show a blended family, but they won't pick a real blended family. They'll pick a bunch of actors that they're trying to make look like a natural blended family, which I find always amusing. But this is my two grandmothers, the first and only time that they met each other. And I love this image because the story behind it is that they were both miserable. Like they were both so unhappy that my parents were marrying each other. The last thing that my grandma said was to my dad when he left India was, please don't marry an American. And so, you know, that's real. And then my Irish grandma said to me once, all my grandkids are mongrels. And then she looked at me and said, well, at least you're a half breed. So I have a very bigoted sort of family on both sides, right? And they were both very, very unhappy about this union. And my Indian grandma actually pretended not to speak English until she died because she didn't want to talk to my mom. So, so it's like, it's real. And the irony to me is they're sitting here and they're both mad about the exact same thing. And they're missing this chance to connect, right? There is something they have in common and they're missing it. And I think that's hilarious and sad. But I'm glad that, you know, my parents went through with it anyway, obviously. And over time, we got to build a relationship with each of these people separately, but they never did with each other, you know, and it was a strain. It was a strain for both parents. And that's a real thing that's still happening. And I think, you know, those kinds of moments, even though it's just a very like simple photo with a giant chasm of navy blue wool, I think it says a lot about how we sometimes miss opportunities to connect. And I try to take something from that. Like every time I show this image, I try to think about or identify like a place that I'm doing that in my own life. Like right now, I probably am. So, yeah, just something to think about. This was a piece that was part of a show called Wonder Women at Jeffrey Deitch. There were 2 parts. One was here, one was in LA, and the first one had 30, the second had 40 Asian women identifying artists. And it was huge to be part of the show just because of the community that was involved. So the curator was Kathy Wang. She's amazing. She still works at Jeffrey Deitch. And there'll be a book coming out probably next year for the show. But when I walked into the show, just to be surrounded by so many artists that I felt like some were heroes, some were friends, some were new. I had never met them. It was a really warm experience that I don't always get to have in the art space, because at the end of the day, it's a commercial space. It's a capitalistic endeavor. And so there are things that are not always awesome about it. You know, like sometimes interactions with art people are unpleasant. And so when they are really, really wonderful, I think it's really important to like hang on to those and try to figure out how you can make more of those. This was another wonderful one. A good friend of mine, a painter named Bonnie Ramirez, who you guys may know, Dominican artist. We got to do a booth together at Frieze Los Angeles. And we got to show our work together. So it was fun. I'm going to talk about this later, because something that brings me joy now in this space is to collaborate with friends and people whose work I really love in any way that I can. There's only so far you can get in your own mind. And then it really helps to have other people to kind of consult or commiserate or celebrate with. So Bonnie's somebody who has been really great to have by my side all these years as a friend and colleague, and his career is, you know, sort of on this like rocket ship. So he's this weirdly young, only 29 year old, wise beyond his years mentor for me. As Mark mentioned earlier, a lot of my work is in found objects. And as I mentioned to you, the objects that I usually find are things that are old, forgotten sort of industrial objects. So this wooden one, I don't even know what it was. It looks like maybe it was like a niche to put like a religious statue or something in. It reminded me of like a religious niche. So I put a picture of my sister's baptism in it, because I felt like that was sort of a way to connect the object to the image. The one on the next to it is a first aid kit. So that's my dad and my sister-in-law. He didn't get any kids that were doctors, but my brother married one. So he said it was the next best thing. And she and he that was the first time and the only time actually that she got to go to India with my dad, because, and it was our last time going with him, because he passed away shortly after that. So I put them in the first aid kit because they were the medical people in our family, the caretakers and the lifesavers. They're both surgeons. So then the objects got bigger. You know, we have to push in the studio. I think sometimes there's pressure to like keep doing the same thing because it's comfortable or because people tend to like it. But I think the best place to be is where you think it's kind of weird and you're not sure. So I keep trying to figure out how to push and not keep remaking the same work. So it got to the point where I had to think about how can I make these objects be more meaningful. And so for this show at Margot Samuel, I started to think about how I can filter my photo archive and use like a theme or an idea or something that I want to research. And then that becomes the filter, and that also dictates which objects get used. So this show was all about furniture. I was interested in and researching the different ways that furniture kind of informs the way that we move through space. Most of my practice is interested in how people move through space. How are we able to move through space especially how is it impacted by our phenotype, like how we look. And I think as a woman and as a woman of color, I think that I've like been trained to kind of make myself small or be quiet. So a lot of the work that I have made historically had been small, kind of intimate, like body scale. So this was sort of a way to think about scaling up a little bit, but as you can see, the other works are still small. I'll never leave that intimate scale because that would not be who I am. I think what I was able to find is that by scaling up, you can learn something, but it may not be where you want to stay. Like each thing offers something different. It's one thing to be able to be absorbed into an artwork or overcome by it, and it's another to be able to contain it and to be able to like be the thing that can consume it fully. So it depends what your goals are, I think, sometimes, what scale you should be working. So, but these are some of the other images from the furniture show. So this was a really big moment for me in developing my practice because I now use this method. Every show I do, I find, or every body of work that I do, I find a filter. I'm working on a show for later this year in Berlin, and I'm working with a poet. And so she's writing a poem, and then that poem is going to be informing all of the work and filtering all the images that I choose. And I am working on another show in March, and the filter for that, because the other artists asked for it, is food and how food and culture and tradition around food kind of define us culturally. So it's been really kind of like this really wonderful way, because when you have so many images, we all have so many images in our phones, and some of us have them as physical photos. It can be hard to, like, people ask a lot, how do you know which photo to pick? And so now the way that I pick is through, depending on which line of inquiry I'm working on. This year I also had my first public art project, and it was at the Public Art Production Fund at Rockefeller Center. And I have this little note here that says it was very rewarding, but asked me about bureaucracy, because the first time I ever had to work with like so many people, and emails just like take forever, and they don't give you enough time, because usually the people, when you get to this scale, like I'm doing a project with the Brooklyn Museum right now, no shade on the Brooklyn Museum, but like the people that are making the decisions, there's like not an artist for like a mile of the room where these decisions are being made. And so no one is like aware of like, oh, maybe the artist needs more than 2 weeks to conceptualize a project of this scale, or maybe the artist like doesn't want to have their imagery shown without their consent, or maybe, I don't know, there's like all of these things. And so for the first time, I had to kind of really be aware of like advocating for things that you'd think might be common sense. But it's, but still also acknowledging that it is a great opportunity to be able to be doing stuff in these spaces. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in life in general, but definitely in the art world of like balancing the pros and cons and figuring out what's the best decision for you, and whether or not you want to engage with these things. So where I am now, which I alluded to earlier, collaborations. This was a collaboration I did with an artist named Kim Dakers at Art Basel Miami this year. She works with tires as her main medium, and we spent a lot of time like thinking about and working on this booth, and she collected these tires for me to use as objects to embed my felt into, and then I taught her how to felt. So you can't really see it, but there's some felt in here that she actually incorporated felting into her project as well. And so it was this really, even like the images that I chose, she was involved in. One of them was a portrait of her, and she did a portrait of me. That's one at the back. So it was a really nice way to make an art fair feel meaningful, because art fairs can feel kind of like a mall. Collaboration is where I am now. I'm collaborating with multiple people this year. A musician named Paul Purgis, the poet Megan Fernandez, who I am working on for the Berlin show, and then Hengama Amiri who is an Afghani artist at the show about food. So it's really, that's what excites me right now, is being able to engage with people that I care about. So that's the direction I'm going. Okay, residencies. So this is the part where I quit talking about my work and I just kind of share like things I think I wish I had really known more about. I think residencies are so important. I hope you guys are excited and like into the idea of doing them, because there's so many different ones that there's really one for everybody, but they do help you grow your network, your cohort. I'm here because somebody that I went to graduate school invited me here. I'm doing a talk on Thursday at American University in Washington, D.C. because somebody I went to grad school invited me there. So look around you. These are people, they are going to be your people that you move through the world with, through the art world with. This cohort is really, it's really meaningful and important. So, hang on to them. And the way that you grow your network and you grow your community is through things like this. Residencies are great because if you're doing a skill-based residency, you're automatically going to be with people who are interested in something that you're interested in, right? And that's really like, that's so valuable. It filters out like tons of people that you don't need to waste your time like getting to know, because you probably don't have anything in common, right? Each one of these is very, very different. Some are ceramics, some are paper, some are just like a studio space to work. Some are just networking, like Fountainhead. That's like mainly, you don't get to make much work there. You just are like meeting people. Some are in the middle of nowhere, some are long, some are short. But there is like, if you're working full time, there's still a way that some of them you can do. And New York City especially has a lot here. Like a friend of mine is at Abrams Art Center right now, LMCC, the Bronx AIM program. These are really, really wonderful programs. And regardless of what your goals are within the arts, your art community and network are really, really important. Apply as many times as it takes. So if I look at my submittable and slide room acceptance rate, it's like 4%. So I've been rejected from 96 or 97% of the things that I've applied through those two platforms, which that doesn't even count like cafe and like random Google form applications that I've done. So like you actually don't get accepted to most things and it doesn't matter. You just need to get into a couple. So just keep applying. It took me 3 or 4 times to get into this residency, which is called Dieu Donné, the paper making residency. And I'm so glad that I did. I apply to Sharp Olentis every year. I'll keep applying to Sharp Olentis till I die. What else do I apply to every year? I don't know. There's a bunch. Eventually I'll start applying for Guggenheim's. I'll definitely do that till I die, but I haven't even started that yet. I did, I'm trying to think of like some of the other ones that you just keep applying to over and over. Oh, and then there's the ones that you have to get nominated for. That's a whole other thing. I've only gotten asked to do a couple of those and I have not gotten any of those yet. So, you just keep going. It's okay. Doesn't matter. Curating. Curating is a really great thing to be able to do to share your love of other people's work, right? We do love making our work, I hope. That's why we're all here. But hopefully it's not the only work that you love. Hopefully you also love other people's artwork and your friends, and you want to support them and you want to think critically about people's work. And we don't have time to think critically about maybe everyone's work. So curating a show is a nice way to narrow down a few people you want to give a little extra time to. This is a show I did during COVID. And it's at this gallery where it's actually 1/12 scale. So even though it looks normal size, 1 inch equals 1 foot here. So the sculpture is only 3 inches tall. That's in the middle. And in the back, those are 2 Aaron Riley tapestries that are 2 inches or 4 inches wide. So I just cold emailed Aaron Riley and was like, hey, I'm doing this tiny thing. And would you ever do a tiny tapestry? And she was like, yeah. Why not? So, and this is Wendy Red Star, who I met at a residency called Chautauqua. So like she was like a mentor at this residency. Again, didn't know her very well, just sent her an email. Hey, Wendy, I'm doing a tiny show. Can you make a tiny work? She's like, yeah, I can. So it's like, it's such a cool thing to kind of think about. And so I throw it out there because it didn't come obviously to me. This woman named Sharon Loudon said it to me. She said that curating is a really generous thing to do. And I didn't understand it. I was like nervous and felt like a phony or a fraud, but actually she was right. It is a really generous thing to do because you get to celebrate somebody else. And it's just, sometimes it's a lot easier to like talk up your friend's work than to talk up your own work, right? And I think like when you're out with a friend, you can do that. You can be like, this is my friend. They're an amazing artist. They do this. And then they can do the same for you. And it's part of this ecosystem that's better than like, hi, I think I'm an amazing artist. You want to meet me? That's not as fun, at least not for me. I don't like to do that. And I also don't believe, I don't know. I don't think I could ever say that and believe that out loud. It's just not it's not for me. Anyway, another show I got to curate was part of this, and I'm almost done, guys. There's like 2 more slides. Okay. Oh, okay. Hey, well, Sharon is who she doesn't run it anymore, but she had run this residency called Chautauqua. I happened to be in this like cohort, like the year when Wendy was there. It's also how I met Jean Shin. Does she teach here too? She used to. Okay. Yeah, and it created just like some really nice connections that I still have today. And Sharon is right. She was totally right about curating and I'm really glad that she brought that to my attention. This was my dad. My dad was an artist. I didn't know until I was like in my 30s teaching high school. And then my dad hands me this box of like 500 photos, like this one that you see on the left there. And he's like, here, make me a famous artist. And I was like, HIPAA, because these are gallbladders of his patients that he has turned into collages. And they are really weird and they had all their information on them. And so I just put the box under my bed for like 10 years. Fast forward to my dad passes away. I go to art school. I become an artist. I become part of this artist collective that's in Williamsburg called Soloway. Bless you. And they give me an opportunity to curate a show. And I'm like, could I maybe curate a show of my dad's weird gallbladder pictures? And they said, yes, we love that. So, so after it was about, I don't know, when did I do it? 2021, maybe. I got to do a show, but I had to talk to our lawyer and figure out like if removing the names was enough. Because technically that's still somebody's gallbladder. So technically I didn't get their written permission to use this photo, but the lawyer said it was okay. So we hope so. This is a pretty tame one. Sometimes they're in like the mouth of an animal that's running through a field, or sometimes they're on a plate of food and like mixed in with meatballs, and it's really gross. But my dad had this whole secret art practice for decades that we didn't know about. And then here he is doing like kind of cheesy portraits, pastel portraits, like of celebrities from People magazine, and he thought that that's what made him a good artist, and he had no idea that he had this like legit practice. But so yeah, so curating gave me the opportunity to share that with the world, and he even got written up in Artnews, which I'm very happy about. These Bomb magazine interviews are a really like life sustaining thing for me. I love doing them. I get to pick whoever I want to interview. I'm in the process of hopefully getting to interview the Guerrilla Girls. So fingers crossed, I'll get to do that this month for Bomb. And it also is a way to figure out how to be engaged with the contemporary art space. You know, like these people are going to be the people who are like become art history. And that's the conversation that I want to be part of. And those are the questions I want to be asking. So, so I really do recommend, if you guys have any interest in writing or interviewing, to do it. Go for it. Hyperallergic takes pitches. I don't know if Bomb takes pitches, but it's worth trying. Community, I already started to mention, but I'm just going to say it again. Community is the most important thing that you can have outside of your actual work. You know, you want to make good work, but once you make it, that's the only thing you can do by yourself. And then you need the community for everything else. So these are some of the groups that I am part of. You need different people for different things. So, you know, Art Noir is an amazing group. It's founded women, and I think it's majority women and all people of color founded. There's 7 people. They wanted to go to museums. They felt like they weren't they felt a little intimidated to go alone, so they made a group. And then it's ballooned out to now they have scholarships. They do artist tours. They co-funded the British Pavilion at the Venice Biennale this year. They're doing all kinds of amazing work. They raised money for the California fire victims. And they're going to do a tour of that Edges of Ailey show at the Whitney this week. And all you have to do is like get on their mailing list and you can start to attend anything that they have. Asianish is an incredible resource. It's just a WhatsApp thread basically, but it became much more through COVID. We were meeting weekly online and just sort of being a space for support and just to like talk about things. I have another bomb interview coming out in a few weeks. That's of an artist that I met through Asianish 3 years ago. Her name is Gun Her. She's a Korean artist that grew up in Atlanta, and she is doing a project around the 4th anniversary of the spa shootings that happened there. That is the Here and There collective. It's a lot like Art Noir, but for Asian artists. So also really, really incredible resource. Check them out. They're highlighting artists. They have a studio. They have a, what's it called? Like a residency. They do publications. They do benefit exhibitions and auctions. They're great. The Black Painters Academy, Ezekwe Mohammed, he might teach here, or maybe Parsons. Sorry, guys. I'm like, there's a lot of artists teaching all over the place, but he's a photographer and mixed media artist, but he also runs a food bank and the Black Painters Academy. Beverly's, have you guys heard of Beverly's? All right, hopefully you're hanging out there on the reg. That newly reopened in their new space, but like what an incredible community that is. There's a lot of overlap, by the way, in these groups. There's like the Venn diagrams are all jumbled together. Field Projects is a terrific space, a collective. Jacob Rhodes, Will Chan, they are on 26th Street. They do an open call twice a year. Just do great work to support and show artists that are doing cool work. Soloway that I mentioned, the New York Crit Club and the Canopy programs that Catherine Haggerty started. That's also a really wonderful thing to participate in and a way to connect with people. And then Duclay, I might have to take that one off the list, guys. Ooh, little bit of tea, but all the people that I was supporting there kind of just left. So maybe Duclay at your own risk. I'll say that. Okay, so pro tips and then thank you. You guys made it. You made it to the end, and I finally got some energy back. So hopefully the Q&A will be like, jumping. We'll see. Okay, there's many ways to be an artist. There's not one path. I'm not going to read them all to you. The second one is important. Another Sharon Loudon Chautauqua stat. So it's true. Everybody has other jobs. Like very few people don't have other jobs. And like make it normal. Just figure out a way to make it work for you. You can have, if you're somebody who likes things to be steady and reliable, like I am, then you can get a full-time job in the arts. I was an art educator. I was a high school art teacher for 10 years. Then I was an art administrator at the Gottlieb Foundation. Like that's doable. You have to just find something that works for you. If you're not a 9-to-5er, that's fine. You can teach a class here. You can do a thing there. You can work. You don't even have to work in the arts. You can like do something in a tool. I have a friend who's a corporate lawyer and a poet, right? Like you can do whatever you want. But just, it's not fit. You're not an artist if you're working. Like that's a myth and a lie. So I just really, I spend a lot of time on that. The non-transactional relationships, this is big. You're going to be here for a while. So just find the people that you like and just hang out with them because you like them. And those people are going to inevitably bring cool opportunities your way, and you're going to bring cool opportunities their way just because you're cool. Like you don't need to, it's not about like climbing and trying, like, it's just find people that you like and be around those people and then just see what happens. Good things are going to happen. If you're not finding opportunities, try creating them. You're in schools, and within schools, sometimes there is opportunities to curate something. If there's not, maybe you could propose it. Like, it's about, like, always ask, you know? People won't necessarily offer you things, but they will say yes to things. And it's, you don't know unless you ask. And have ideas. Once I was working at a place and we didn't have any people of color on our board. And I was like, hey, I think we need some people of color on our board. And my boss said, well, I asked them and they said no. And I said, well, here's a list of 17 people that I think you should ask, right? Like, have something ready behind you. And so then we got some. So, it's like, you kind of have to anticipate the no, and like, there's ways, normalize rejection. We talked about that. Bless you. Be patient, be kind, takes time. There's no way it's supposed to be. It's just supposed to be how it is. And then, yeah, the last one we talked about, it's about the long game, because it is. So just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then, okay. So yeah, thanks for sticking with me, guys. I appreciate it.